All right, so we are going to do something a little bit different today. We had two very special guests join us last week. They are a mother-daughter duo. One is Canadian and one lives here in New York City. So Trudy is the mom and Chloe is the daughter. Trudy has an incredible ceramics business called Looks Like White. She has been a partner of Food 52 for a very long time. Chloe is an influencer and a producer and a model here in New York. She goes by the name Chloe LaRue, and Trudy goes by the name Trudy Crane. We talk about their relationship. We talk about changing your career later on in your life. We talk about life. We talk about being a woman. We talk about dating. We talk about menopause. We talk about their book, which is The Artful Way to Plant-Based Cooking. And then finally, we talk about how they think about themselves and their careers and how that has progressed and evolved over time. Okay, so introduce yourselves. I'm going to have you introduce yourselves.
Okay. I'm Trudy Crane. I live in Canada, in Montreal, and I am an author, cookbook author, a model, and a ceramic artist.
Okay, in that order?
No, it depends on the day.
And how many languages do you speak?
2.
Is French your native language?
Not at all. I grew up on the western side of Canada.
Okay.
And I moved to Montreal.
Like Alberta?
BC.
Okay.
And I did live in Alberta for a little while, and I moved to Montreal when I was 27.
Okay.
And I did not speak a word of French.
Interesting.
Nothing. And I eventually opened up a store. I met a French Canadian, Chloe's dad, and I eventually opened up a store, and I had to learn French. And so I learned to speak store French, I called it.
Store French, like just the words that make you able to sell
anything,
something.
But don't have a conversation with me, please.
You're like, that's actually the perfect, like, the chit chat and how to get somebody to buy something.
Yeah,
it's really
exactly,
all you need in
exactly. And if you talk too much, then I would pass you on to somebody else.
You're like, well.
But that got me going.
Okay, so that's great. And then Chloe, tell us about you.
My name is Chloe Crane Leroux, and I live in New York City, but I'm originally from Montreal. Been living here for 10 years, which I feel like a New Yorker now, finally.
You are a New Yorker.
Yes. And I'm a recipe developer, cookbook author, content creator, visual storyteller, I would say, and wear many hats, do many things.
And Trudy's your mom.
Yes, she is.
And you wrote a book together.
We did.
So how was it working with your mom or working with your daughter? Like, how was that?
And we always say that it's just like the easiest thing in the world, which is funny because I feel like so many people would not probably work with their moms, but
I could work with my mom.
You would? Yeah. Okay, amazing.
Do you think most people can or can't? I would love to work with my mom. My mom's very funny.
I feel like most people would love to, but maybe can't or just would, I don't know. We never really fight or argue, actually.
No, at all.
Which is like something that most people like always are like, oh, we know you fight. Like, we know you argue.
Really, we don't.
But we really don't.
No,
we were just talking about that this morning.
Yeah,
we're just always kind of on the same page.
Yeah. And it's always a discussion, and both Chloe and I can turn the page very quickly with things. Okay, we have a discussion, maybe we don't agree, but it literally 5 minutes later.
It doesn't linger.
Never,
you just move on.
Never, yeah.
That's
always.
a good quality, I think,
yeah.
being able to move on.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, so when did you start the ceramics brand? Later in your life, right?
I did. I was 50. I had my 50th birthday.
Okay.
And I was an executive, a marketing executive in fashion for 30 years. And I had done the tour of it so much.
Yeah.
And I decided that I wanted to quit my executive job and become a ceramic artist.
Amazing.
And everybody went, yeah, go. No, that's not true.
Like,
Nobody said that.
Or were they like, yeah, sure, do it. And then they're like, she's never going to be successful.
Well, that too. No, but people thought I was crazy to do that.
So how did you muster up the courage? Like, what gave you the courage to do it?
I couldn't do my job anymore.
Yeah, you're done.
I could not work in that environment, and I loved my job for years. But I just couldn't do it, and I felt, this is the last quarter of my life, and am I really going to do this for the rest of my life? Like, it just felt completely wrong to me. So I kind of didn't know how I was going to approach it. First, I thought, I need to go to another job. Maybe I'm just bored. And so I went to the beauty industry, a French company, and I worked with them for a year, and I said, no, this isn't it.
This isn't it either.
No, it isn't. And I had an idea for a long time. I had been doing ceramics on and off for years. And I had an idea for a collection, and I said, I'm going to quit, and I'm going to start this brand. And I saved up a bit of money, and that's what I did.
And never looked back.
Never looked back. It took me a few years to get going. And then, of course, 2014, Food 52 came, and that was my first big...
That was a big break.
It really was. Honestly, it's been a great joy.
And how do you balance that with the modeling now?
Oh, it's easy. Honestly, modeling, it's a day here, a day there. And I do my ceramics. I moved out to the country, and I have my ceramics studio in
your house.
My house now. So literally, I just walk downstairs into my studio. So it's really, I have a nice balance.
That's great.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
And then, Chloe, how do you balance your day? Like, how do you think about your work? Because your work is really independent. It's very solo.
It is very independent, and it's funny because I have never had an office job, like ever. Like, not once in my life have I not been a freelancer. And it's just everything that I know. I think I would feel a bit like disoriented.
Oh God! I think if somebody plopped Chloe in an office, it'd be like Bambi when they're on. When Bambi's on the ice and like the legs are everywhere.
That would be me, honestly. But it's been like that my whole life, so that's really what I know. I have ADD as well, so it's just like trying to master the fact of like being able to be an independent and having enough discipline and putting like deadlines and having a timeline, and those things are kind of hard when your mind is literally everywhere and that you're creative. But I really try to every day doesn't look the same, but it's so important for me to have a routine. I thrive on routine, even though I love doing so many things. Being able to have somewhat of a routine kind of anchors me. And even if it's like waking up at the same time every day, or just like a workout, or cooking more at home, those things just are so important because I never know kind of what the day will look like.
Yeah, it kind of stabilizes everything. Are you a routine person, Trudy, or no?
I am. I really like. I'm like Chloe. My mind is always everywhere, but I really like to have this. Okay, I'm going to do this at this time and this at this time.
Do you live by your calendar?
Not too much. I try to kind of keep it open, but because once I start the rest of my day and I go in the studio, I really try to just be in a creative mode. So I do like to have these times that they're kind of set.
And what's your routine, Chloe? Like, what's a Wednesday for Chloe?
Honestly, it will never look the same. I don't think there's ever been a Wednesday that was like, oh, that feels Wednesday. Similar that as like last week. But I usually would always like get up, do a workout, and then
go to the gym, or like in your apartment, or
in my building. I have a Pilates studio,
okay.
So very lucky about that. I do Pilates every day, and then I'll make my matcha latte. I haven't been drinking coffee for the last 3 months, which
how's that going?
Is crazy because I never thought I would be that person. I love coffee, but it's been really great.
Do you feel better?
I feel so much better. Less inflammation in my body, less anxious. You would
I agree
think.
that coffee makes you a little wiry.
It
makes
really
me a little
does.
wiry.
Yeah.
And then I just drink more coffee.
Well, yeah.
Triple wire.
No, honestly, that's what I used to do.
Okay, so you're drinking matcha.
Drinking matcha, it's been great. I love also the actual ritual of making my matcha. I just think that also that is part of my routine.
Yeah.
It's grounding. And then, I can shoot a recipe that day.
Yeah.
and I'll take the whole day to do that. Or I'll be editing videos from the past week that I shot. Or I'll have a photo shoot with like my videographer, and I'll be creating an ad. For a brand, which I do often. Or, I'm traveling. And if I'm traveling, I'm probably shooting multiple videos in a day. Or if I have a few meetings, it will be like back to back. Or I'll do like an admin day, which we all need,
An admin day is a good day.
It's
my favorite day.
I love an admin day. Do you have a task list? Do you have like that nagging list of things?
You see,
yes,
I wish
I
I had lists, but I love the idea of lists, but then I never make them.
That's okay. That's all right. But an admin, like I've been having this to-do list where I needed to call American Express. I gave Jessica Rose my credit card, which was probably not a great idea. And I gave my assistant my credit card, and Jessica Rose has just been spending on this credit card. So I'm a little bit like, all right, well, what did we buy Jessica Rose? And what is it for? Because I think like I have a little bit of a life, like I do board work. So sometimes when I travel, it's for that, or sometimes it's for this. There's like 14 Amazon charges for like $16. And I was like, what are you doing, Jessica Rose? But it was on my admin to-do list. And I'm so spacey. I'm like, I don't have my American Express password. I don't even know my username. I'm like on the phone with somebody in some part of the world being like, okay, so then on January 12th, what was the charge and how much was it for? But I felt so satisfied when I got it done.
Oh, yeah.
It feels very
satisfying.
satisfying.
It's cleansing a little bit.
It really is. Oh, I need one of those days.
Okay, so we'll schedule one of those. Okay, what about, one question I have for you is, I'm new to this, but I think you both live in it where you have an agent, where your work comes through someone else, and you kind of give your agency to someone else to help you do that. Like how does that work for you? How do you develop trust with someone else? Like if you're thinking about modeling gigs or you're thinking about brand shoots, like how do you develop that rapport with someone who is representing you in market?
I think I'm very lucky. I have an amazing agent.
And was it the first person you found?
Yes.
Okay.
She reached out to me, and she's my mother agent, so she puts me into other agencies in different cities.
Got it.
And she is just so, she's like a friend. I mean, she's really looking out for me. She knows the market. She was a model for many, many years. And I think it's really finding the right person. And I think Chloe would totally agree with that.
Absolutely.
You really need to find somebody that you trust, that is really looking out for your best interest. And we'll always do that. We'll fight for you, and we'll, tell you no or yes, or
give you kind of the hard truth
the
when
hard
you need
truth
it.
when you don't want it.
Yeah.
And I think it's, like I say, I feel very lucky that I found somebody right away, because that's not always the case. But yeah, I think it's important. I mean, in my business, I don't have I need an agent. I can't do it.
And do you have an agent for your ceramics as well?
No, I don't.
You do that yourself?
I've done it myself, basically. And it worked, luckily. But no, I didn't have anybody for that.
And how do you think about it, Chloe? Same?
I think about it in the same way. I actually didn't have anybody for a really long time, and then I signed with my management agency, or my management, about a year and a half ago, a little bit over. But it's been a game changer. I feel like doing everything alone, was fine for a long time, and I felt like I wanted the control. I just needed that. But, it's so important to be able to learn how to delegate.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I had to learn. And it's been so incredible having a team. I think that having a team and people who support you, encourage you, but will also give you the hard truths and will give you feedback is super important. And that's what I found. I feel like it's, it almost becomes like part of your family, because you're constantly talking to them. You're with them, all the time, and they're, trying to get the best for you. And it really has to do with, confidence and being able to trust that the person that is working with you is, has your best interest, and they really do. So
yeah, they're great.
They're great.
That's amazing. And then talk about modeling. Like, what is it like Is it lonely? Is it nerve-wracking? Do you have to become a different person on all different shoots? Like, how do you think about it?
Well, it's funny because I was in marketing for so long in fashion. So I was always on the shoots. Chloe used to come on the shoots when she was young. Younger, sorry.
Chloe's still young.
Yes, exactly. When I was shooting. And I chose the models, you know, with my team.
So you were familiar. You sat on the other side of the table.
With it. So I had literally no anxiety. And honestly, I'm at this point in my life where everything is good.
Yeah.
This is just a really, you know what? No problem.
It's fun.
I'm not sweating the small stuff anymore, honestly. So when I go on set, I have so much fun because I'm with all these really creative people. They're having a great time, and I'm just like, okay, whatever you want to do, let's
easy.
Go. Yeah. And this is just a great, easy, wonderful time in my life. Honestly.
When did you get that zenness, like the happy-go-lucky, easy-going? Like, were you always like that, or was it a point like after you left the corporate stuff where you were like, wow, this is...
I think it came, I think I've always been a very calm person, but the attitude of, I'm this point in my life, I think it honestly comes after menopause, and it is a really important, I think menopause is a huge subject that needs to be discussed more. And I don't know, after that, I really...
Just chilled out.
Yeah, and changing my job and doing what I really, really wanted to do, being creative. From that moment, I said, this is it. Now I am going to do what is important to me, and I'm going to be calm about it, and I'm going to just allow things to come the way they're supposed to come.
I read this thing on Instagram this morning that you have, if you're lucky, 4,000 weeks of your life.
Yes.
Which is such a small number. Like, it just makes me so sad. And then you're like, what am I doing with myself?
Well, you really have to put it in perspective. And what is the most important things you want to do? What is this? And that's what struck me at 52 or 50 was, really, is this what it's supposed to be like for the rest of my life? It has to be fun. And since then,
it's very freeing.
Yeah, it really is.
What do you think people aren't talking about menopause? Just the whole thing?
Yeah, and I actually now I see more and more people.
It's becoming very in vogue, I think, lately, like within the last 2 or 3 years.
Yes, but when I was going through menopause, I was
Nobody
shocked.
talked about it.
Nothing. I was having every single symptom possible, and I doctors were saying you can't go on HRT.
Hormones.
And I thought, this is unbearable.
Yeah.
Why aren't we having discussion? How come nobody's talking about menopause?
It's true. It's so silly. It's because it's something that it's so funny because I'm in perimenopause or whatever. I'm on my way in. Are you dying right now, Sarthik? I feel like your mother should be so happy. You were surrounded by like so much female energy all the time.
That's how I grew up.
That's good.
But anyways, it's so funny. Like, it isn't talked about, and it feels, like I'm in the like sweat all night phase, right? And
awful.
it's like it's the worst. It's like the worst sweat imaginable, and
Terrible.
nobody talks about it. And then when you're like, oh my god, I'm sweating. Like I had a bikini wax this weekend, and I was talking to the lady because I just like insist on having a conversation with anyone, and she was like, oh, like. I don't know how it came up, but I was like, I'm like, do you sweat all night? She was like, oh, I sweat and then you open up the floodgates and it's all anybody wants to talk about.
It's absolutely true.
So it's so funny. It's your health. It's how you feel. And it's just, it's such a big thing.
It's funny because when I was 42, I went into perimenopause, and I was having kind of a huge anxiety, almost like,
like a panic thing.
Panic attack. And so I went to the doctor. I said, this is what's happening. And he said, oh, no, don't.
You're imagining
it's
it.
okay, just try to relax.
Drink a tea.
Take a tea. And literally this past year, I follow a menopause doctor, and she said part of perimenopause, one of the signs is panic attacks.
Oh,
And I said,
interesting.
wow.
I knew it.
I knew it was part of menopause.
I knew it. That's so interesting. Okay, Chloe, so Chloe's not in
No.
menopause, but
I think it's so important to talk about all of these things, and I'm so glad that we're able to, talk more about the different cycles and how we're dealing through all of that, and that actually men are learning more about that, and that we're talking more about menopause, and it's more widely spoken, and it's on social media, and it's a conversation, and thank God, because I feel like when you were going through it, as you were saying, it was just like no one was talking about it.
It was almost shameful.
It was almost shameful. And we go through so many things as women. Like, I always think about this, and I'm like men just are leveled their whole entire life.
Every month doesn't change.
And
it's
then
your
we're
body's-
going through
yes.
things, and we're it never ends. And it's just kind of crazy that even through your 40s and your 50s, it's still going, and you get your period, then you have to go through all
Even
of
from
those
a teenager,
things.
all
Exactly.
the
It's
times you
just
have a baby.
there's always something, and our bodies are constantly changing, and it's just something that I feel like we really have to speak more about, because it's just something that also we as women don't talk about. It's not taught in school. It's not, if you're not talking to your friends, who are you talking to?
Yeah, your
about?
mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
What's a beauty tip that you have? Either one of you, or both.
Beauty tip. I think everybody says drink more water.
Yes, which you're like,
But
I'll have another coffee.
Yeah, literally.
I would say, and I've said this to Chloe many times, I think you have to start to think about skincare, and that now young women like Chloe are doing that, but at my time we didn't. We slept on, forget
Baby
about
oil,
sunscreen
yeah.
and a little bit of Nivea or
Yeah.
something like that, and that was you're out
Yeah,
the door.
yeah.
But skincare is so important. I think starting it really very young and protecting your skin is, it's obvious now, but
SPF is so important.
oh my God, it really is. And, trying to, follow some kind of routine with your skincare is, I wish I had done it a lot earlier. But I also just feel from the inside, of course, Chloe and I are plant-based, and I have to say, since I've been plant-based, my skin is so much better.
Interesting.
So much better. I just think eating that, all these vegetables and, having a more
Fiber
kind of,
and-
it is, because, we ate vegetables, but not that much as Chloe was growing up. And, I don't know, my diet is just so different.
Yeah.
And I'm so much more observant of my diet, and I really feel that's helped enormously.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I agree. I feel like, we can put so many things on our faces, and, I see all these girls on social media, the uglier you wake up, the better you are for your skin. There's 3 layers of sheet masks, and the mouth tape and the nose thing, and we can do all of this, and I'm sure it helps. I know that I do, but honestly, I think eating well, having a routine, being able to be less anxious, put less inflammation in your body, your diet will completely change that. And I know that it's hard sometimes for people because they don't want to change, and people are stuck in their routines, and they're stuck in how they like to eat. And food means culture, food means travel, food means so much family. Food is so intertwined in our lives, and it's so important for us, but also it's so important for our health. And I think, we have this one life, and if we can, just avoid disease or just minimize it, it's so important, and it all starts with how you eat.
Yeah,
It really does.
I think that's great advice. Do you want to talk about the cookbook and promote the cookbook for a second?
I mean, why not?
We're here.
We're here. Well, we started talking. We had written a cookbook in 2017.
Okay.
And it was just came out in French. And we said after that cookbook that we would write another one. But, things, I don't know, timing.
Life,
life
Life happens,
happened. And I don't know, at 2021, I mean.
Yeah.
We said, okay, I think we're ready. And what do we want to say? And so we started having those discussions, and we felt we had come to what we really did want to speak about.
We always kind of knew what we wanted our second cookbook to be.
Okay.
And we always thought, okay, we want this to be a bit more warm, but talking a bit about moments. Like, what are the moments in life that, are so important that we celebrate around food? Moments that we really look at what's going on around us and see the beauty in everything. That is really like our philosophy. And we were like, how can we translate that into a cookbook? And we were really talking about that for many years. And then in 2021, we were like, okay, let's, pitch, or just like, let's write it down. Let's
get
visualize.
the proposal. Yeah.
Exactly. And we kind of really we really knew what we wanted to say. And
Yeah.
So
Started
what is it called?
The Artful Way to Plant-Based Cooking.
Okay, what's your favorite recipe in it?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I love the tofu schnitzel recipe. I love tofu.
Tofu is delicious.
I love
hated
tofu.
tofu at the beginning. And I just couldn't, I didn't know how to cook it. When I first went vegan, I was trying it. Who likes tofu? What is this? But now I really get it.
Honestly, the first few years that I became plant-based, she was like, I mean, are you sure? Do you not just like want to eat eggs? It was really hard for you the first two years. You were like, are you sure this is good? Which I get, because it was also very new back then. Like, I mean, new. Like,
Who drove the plant-based decision?
Oh, me, for sure. You were
I was
skeptical.
But
then when you kind of like, I think you just started to know that
I just learned how to cook.
But you also saw that my skin was doing better, that I was doing better, that my health was better, and then you were like, okay, I'm gonna try, and then you also just felt so much better.
Chloe never ate meat as a child. I would put it on her plate, and she would cut it into these little,
smush it around the
little
corners,
tiny pieces.
Exactly.
And I would say you have to eat the 3 pieces of everything on your plate.
That game.
Yeah. And so, she would cut this minuscule piece and take that. She just never ate it. She didn't like it. It was, no. So the second she left home, she became vegetarian. Yeah, like literally 3 months after.
Yeah.
And, then she became plant-based, fully plant-based. And, she looked great and felt great. And, that was very encouraging. We wrote the book, and then... But it took me much longer. I took a year.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, that we encourage people to make it their own journey. This isn't about, okay, you have to be plant-based, and we're not going to guilt you into,
or shame you.
If
you want to do it, it can be very artful.
Yes,
exactly.
it can. And you take your time and you learn how to do this, and just even... we encourage people to incorporate more plant-based meals into even if they want to stay eating some fish or some meat.
It's all about balance.
It is.
It really is. And it's important that we get to, like you said, encourage and support people. I think having this beautiful cookbook and recipes that are super approachable is really ideal, because sometimes I think veganism or just plant-based foods can be a bit, intimidating to people. But I think making it more approachable, not making it like, have 45 ingredients, and basically what we're just saying is eat really good food for you that will make you feel good, not only make you feel good, but will make you feel happy, will, be able to create a moment around this recipe, around this food. If you want to have it for a date night, that would be awesome. Invite your friends over for dinner, make it with them. It's all about those little moments that, all combine around food. And that's where the joy happens.
It's really the way that Chloe grew up. In our house, it was like that. We entertained all the time, had people, our good, very best friend couple, we were over all the time with their son, who was Chloe's age. And, we had apéro every night. And so Chloe grew up in that environment.
In a social eating environment.
Yes. And just so those moments for us were so important and so important for her, and just really appreciating the table, appreciating our food. We just loved it. Everybody cooked. And so it felt like a very natural
That's amazing.
way to make our book sort of around that.
Okay, wait, can I ask a question? We don't have to answer this, but are you both dating?
We both have partners.
Yes, we both have partners.
Yes.
And did you go through a time when you were both dating?
Like
Yes.
dating, like you were dating a little bit and I was,
We were dating at the same
I
time.
think so.
And how did you talk about that? Like, how did you talk about that? You two seem like you talk about everything.
Yeah,
You're like
we
water.
We definitely
did.
do.
And I encouraged Chloe to. She had a long-term relationship, and then I'll let you talk about that. They were dating. She was dating, and I had Chloe's father and I split up, and I was not really that interested in dating at this point in my life, but my friends absolutely.
They were interested in you dating. Friends are good like that.
Yes, forced me onto one of those sites.
Okay, so did you do the online dating thing?
Yes, I did.
Was it painful?
Yes. It was so painful.
But did you meet your person through it?
Well, the funny thing is, at one point, I was 59, and I said, you know what? I don't want to do this. It's too much. I can't. And you know what? I said it to myself out loud. I said, I'm good. I really don't need this. I really feel great in my life, and I think I can just...
I'm good.
Yeah. It's okay. So you had to, I'm thinking of the word in French, unsubscribe. From the website, but they make you stay 30 days longer.
Okay.
So I said, okay, whatever. And my current partner wrote to me during that time.
In the 30 days.
And I said, no, I'm not answering. I'm not interested. Thank you very much. And then he wrote me back, and he said, let's just go for coffee. I said, okay, last one.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I met him, and he's a composer.
Okay.
And I said, okay, second date, third date. And I said, yeah, no, this is it. It was really almost instant, and he is an incredible person.
That's
and
wonderful.
6 years we're together.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you let your subscription run out, and that was that. You were like, thank you very much.
Another date after that. Yeah,
Did
it
you
was
do
amazing.
online dating, Chloe?
If I did online dating, or if it is...
Did you?
I did. I mean, I went on the apps, but when you were dating, and I just was super I just encouraged you, so I was really happy. But then when I had split up from my long-term relationship, I was dating for a few years, and then it was during COVID, and it was so complicated, and I was sort of dating someone else, and then I went back to Montreal for like 6 weeks during the summer. I was like, okay, I need to I stayed in New York the whole time.
Okay, that was a little claustrophobic.
That was a little
here too.
claustrophobic. I was in my 300 square feet apartment for 6 months, and I was like, I need to get out.
I'd like to see nature.
Literally. So I went to Montreal for 6 weeks, and I was like, okay, well, this is a weird time. I don't even know if I can see anybody, but let me just go on the apps. And I went on them, and I saw a guy that I had gone to elementary school with.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, I know you. And so then we matched, and we started just chatting, and I was like, I haven't seen you in so long, and he said the same thing, and I was like, look, I know that this guy is probably I knew that he came from a really good family, and that I knew where he's kind of a history.
You knew the path.
Exactly. We kind of just knew each other, but weren't really friends. And then I saw him, and I was like, well, you don't look like a kid anymore.
I remember 7th grade.
Yeah, literally. So, and then we basically spent 6 weeks together, and when we had like our final days in Montreal, he was like, "So can I come to New York next weekend?"
And you're like, yes.
I'm like, "Yes," and then we just literally have been like inseparable.
That's
ever
amazing.
since. And
That's so great.
he moved to New York, and we had
They
the
grew
life.
up a block apart.
That's
We
so
did,
funny.
Yeah. And
Life is so funny like
life
that.
is so funny. I feel like this is like we live parallel lives. There's like this thing called the red string theory or something, and it's basically like you have your person, and you lived parallel lives, and you were always so close. We had many mutual friends, and we been to the same bars, same events many times, but then we never really connected. But we just got together at the right time and the right place.
And it worked. I have a funny story like that. My best friend, so it was September 11th, and we were living in Boston. And she's a research librarian, so she always wants to research everything. And she went to the Boston Public Library, and she worked at an ad agency and had a notepad with her name on it. And she was at the library. Everything was kind of shut down. It was very weird after 9/11 here. Like, it was just strange. And a girl walked by the table and saw the notepad and was like, wait, this is your name? And the girl was like, that's my name too. So such a random coincidence. And then she said, there's this guy, this Marine pilot, who's been writing me. And he's clearly, it's not for me, it must be meant for you. And this was my roommate's high school boyfriend.
Oh my God.
And then they got reconnected, and he lived in Hawaii, and she went to Hawaii to see him and never came back. Like, they reconnected and fell in love.
That's an
Isn't that
amazing
crazy?
story.
But like, speaking of the string, like, it's such a funny story.
That's incredible.
I love that when that happens.
Oh,
Same.
that's meant to be.
I agree. I think so. All right. So, ladies, thank you for doing this. I
So much
appreciate you
fun.
coming on here. Sarthik, we didn't do anything we were supposed to do.
It went amazing.
Amazing. I'm so glad.
Sarthik's like, go back and talk more about menopause. That's like, I have a teenage son, and it's whenever there's like tampons out, I'm just like, period. And he's like, thank you for coming
Thank
in here.
you
Thank
so
you for
much.
doing
Thanks
this.
for
Do you
having
want to
us.
tell
It's a
people where to
pleasure.
find you?
Yes, absolutely.
My ceramics are at Looks Like White.
And you can find them on Food 52.
Food 52, of course.
And lookslikeWhite.com.
Yeah,
Yep.
lookslikeWhite.com. And I also have another account, Trudy Point Crane.
Okay.
On
As in like
Instagram.
dot?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Okay.
Yes.
And
That's
what
the
about you,
French.
Chloe?
Well, on Instagram and on TikTok and most places, you can find me at Chloe C. Leroux, Leroux. And then you can find our cookbook everywhere where you can find cookbooks. And it's The Artful Way to Plant-Based Cooking.
Amazing. Okay, thank you. That
Thank
was
you
so
so
great.
much.
Did that work for you?
Yeah,
That's a
so
good
much
warm-up.
fun.
What was I just going to ask you? Why did you name the brand that?
Looks Like White?
Yeah, I love the name.
It's funny because I wanted to make a collection in matte white. That was
Okay.
my first collection that I had in my head. And I started, it's crazy, a Tumblr blog
Okay.
called Looks Like White. And, my home is
White.
all white. And, I
Her
love
hair.
my
Your hair
hair
is
has been white for
white.
20 years. And I just, for me, just having white dishes on the table
It's so beautiful, so
yeah,
elegant.
It is so elegant, and I think it just makes the food sing.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to call my brand that, and I don't want to make colored dishes.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't want that. I really wanted to stick with white. So
Here we
so
are.
white, yeah.
Let's keep that in because that's
Okay,
actually
okay,
fun.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, ladies, so much. I'm going to let you have a day.
Oh my God. Thank
I'll
you.
come find you before you go.
Yeah.
But this is
Yeah.
so great. It'll be so
Awesome.
fun.
I'm so excited.